Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network. The broadcast shows are for informational and entertainment purposes only. They are not designed to provide listeners with specific personal, medical, or counseling advice. Individuals with a medical issue should always consult their healthcare provider. MS&Me is not responsible for content of individual shows. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own. Enjoy the show.
Hey y'all, and welcome to Straight Up with MS and all its crazy little circles here on MS&Me Radio, brought to you by the MS Global Support System. I'm your host, Patty Long, and you can find me at MS in It for Life, and I spell that MSENIT, the number 4, LIFE. You can Google me and find me that way, but I'm on Twitter. I'm not on Facebook, but I'm on Twitter. And I do have Messenger, so, if somebody has a question or wants to talk more personally, face to face, I can do that on Messenger. Or if you're in the US and we've become friends online, then, I'll give you my number and you can call me. So that is really cool. I would love to be able to do that with people in other countries and have phone calls, but that has to be a messenger phone call, not a phone call. But that's where you can find me. And I love Twitter because you can get on Twitter at any time of day or night and reach out and touch someone. Okay, I'm just kidding. You're not actually touching someone, but you kind of are, because, if you're sad, if you're lonely, if you're mad, if you're happy, there's always somebody to talk to. And you can have a really good time, and you can ask questions if you are just not sure about something. You can easily reach out and touch someone. Okay, that's enough of that. But it's online, and I'm not creepy, so I'm just silly. But that's me. And everybody that I meet knows that I am just goofy and silly. And I tell people at the bars, I don't really drink any alcohol, hardly ever. I did get to be an adult while I was in Vegas, and that was a lot of fun, getting to have that one or two drinks here and there. And I didn't go overboard because, well, when you have MS, you're already kind of drunk, right? You have a slow central nervous system, and that's what being drunk is all about, is kind of slowing that nervous system down so you feel all goofy. But, I'm that way naturally, so I don't really need the alcohol to have fun. I don't need the alcohol to be social. I can be drinking my water, which I do quite often, actually. Go and get a cup of water at the bar. And I had to start doing that because they don't sell bottled water, and I can't bring my bottled water in there because that could get them in trouble with the law, because there's laws about this stuff. If the police come in to check and make sure everybody's of age and all of that kind of stuff, then and they see that I have a bottle in my hand of something that is not sold in the place that I'm at, well, they can have a problem, and I wouldn't get in trouble because it's water, but at the same time, the bar would, and I'm not going to do that to my friends, right? So I don't, I just ask them for a cup of water, and I don't get ice water. I never drink anything cold. I mean, when they pour me something and it's already cold and I take a little sip of it, I'm like, oh no, I'm going to let this sit here for a few minutes and get room temperature, because my body temperature swings so badly that a cold drink in the summer is going to freeze me, and every muscle's going to tighten, and I'm going to be so cold, and it's evident that I'm cold. I mean, you can touch me and feel that my body is cold, and you can see me shiver. You can see my legs get stiff. It's obvious that I am too cold. But before I get to that point, my monitor on my smartwatch is going to go off and it's going to say, whoa, time to do something because your heart rate is increasing rapidly at the moment. So something is wrong. So there's several factors involved in that. I could be too hot. I could be, where my body temperature is actually rising, or I can be too cold where my body temperature is actually dropping. I can be trying to do too much at one time and exhausting myself, and it's taking more energy. And as I'm doing it, my heart rate goes up. So I wear a smartwatch or a fitness watch. I don't know what you call them these days, but it'll tell me. I'll just set it to an exercise mode, which I usually use the treadmill one because really I'm not interested in anything except for it keeping track of my heart and making sure that I don't have a surprise and end up in trouble. It's just precaution. So, anyways, it's a great precaution, y'all. If you don't have one, I suggest it. I highly suggest it. You can find them really cheap now. I paid like $100 when most watches were about 250. And this was in, I don't know, 2015 or 2016, somewhere in there. But I've had it a while, and it's actually getting kind of old, and it's having a difficult time charging. And I'm like, oh no, I love my watch. I don't want to have to get a new one, but I might have to. But it's an important tool in my toolbox for MS because it warns me at the first instant. And it does. It warns me immediately that I need to change something. And that's what it's all about, is finding your triggers and then making those appropriate changes to stop whatever it has been triggered. So for me, with the hot, cold, and in betweens, all that temperature related kind of stuff, all the overdoing it kind of stuff, my watch tells me before I actually feel it. If I wait, then I'm going to feel it. You don't want to use up all your energy, and you don't want to use no energy because then you just get more tired, right? So you want to use some to make some. And that's how I keep going. And people are like, how do you do this? And then I tell them, and they are like, well, I ain't got time for that. And I'm like, okay, well, then go on and be exhausted. No, I don't tell them that. But there's time in everybody's day to build upon energy. There is energy for 99.9% of us. There is energy to actually try to do things and to build upon our energy. And that's what that is about. You have to use it to make it. But if you use it and you lose it all, well, then it's gone and you can't make any more. So you got to be careful about that. And my watch helps to warn me that, oops, I've done too much. So anyways, moving on from that, I have a story. I've got a story from my trip to Vegas that I really want to share with you guys. And actually, it was from when we left Las Vegas. We got a bus to fit all of us in one bus to travel to the Grand Canyon. Now, we thought this was going to be, or at least I did. I mean, I was told it was like a 2.5 hour drive to get to the Grand Canyon. But no, it wasn't 2.5 hours to get to the Grand Canyon. It was way longer. So I'm thankful that we were in the bus because that gave us more room to stretch and stuff like that. And of course, I have my water bottle, which I kept refilling and stuff and all of that. And when we got to the Grand Canyon, and I was so excited, I got my National Park Pass. And anybody who is disabled, if you've got those papers on you, like I have for my tag, my registration for my placard or my tag that says that I can park in a handicapped spot. Now, I generally don't do that anymore, but I used to do it. I used to need that spot. But now I'm so much better that I rarely need it. I only need it if I've overdone it. So, or if I'm about to overdo it, or if I think I might overdo it. Like if I go to Walmart and I need to go shopping way in the back of the store in one corner and then go way to the other corner and then up to another corner. And, if I've got a lot of walking to do inside the store, I might park in one of those spaces. If I've got a lot of heavy things that I'm going to be getting because lifting things wears my arms out and takes up my energy, then I'm going to park in one of those spots. But if you have that paper, you can hand it to the person when you're going into the national park and get a pass that is just a gorgeous pass, and I love it. I just want to take the little wheelchair off of it, but because I am handicapped in many ways, but I don't like the word. I don't like the word disabled because I'm not disabled. I am an abled disabled person. I'm very capable of many, many things, just not everything. So I got this pass and we all got in for free. And it was like, oh, wow, because it was going to be $35. And I'm kind of thinking the girl said $35 a person, but maybe it was $35 a car. But I don't know. I was sitting in the back section of the bus, so I couldn't really hear them, but I kept saying, hand her this, pass this up. And Justin was like, what is that? And I said, just pass it up. And he did. And, we had a blast on the way there, by the way, talking junk and cutting up. And I mean, we laughed and laughed and laughed. But he finally got it passed up. And our driver, Charles, who is a wonderful driver, a very great driver to have done this. I mean, this team is just amazing. The friendships, and Justin's girlfriend was a trip to Taylor, and Teresa was there, and she didn't go to the Grand Canyon with us. Her and Tim had to leave early, so we went, and I got my pass. Charles handed it to her, and the lady there was like, oh, well, this is even better, because they'd been looking for discounts and stuff. And she's like, this is even better because now you can all get in for free. We just need you to get her to sign this and read it to her. So Justin started to read it to me, and I'm like, you don't need to read it to me because I know that it's just a paper saying that this is yours, you are who you say you are, and all of that kind of stuff, and that this is true, and my permanent disability, which is what it is there, so I might as well take advantage of getting the free pass, and it's a beautiful card. So now we're at the Grand Canyon, and we've parked, and I've refilled my water bottle, and everybody's gone to the bathroom, and we start down the path. Well, it's a paved path, and frankly, there's not a lot of shade. There's some little kind of, I guess they're trees. They wouldn't be called trees here, but I guess for they're trees, not shrubbery. But there's these little ones, but there's not a lot of shade. It's the Grand Canyon. So, and it's Arizona. And we left Nevada, and it was, 107 to 110 degrees, and I don't think Arizona was any different. And it's bright, bright sunshine. We're there in the middle of the day. Probably in the heatest, is that a word? The heatest part of the day and the hottest part of the day. But, I wasn't thinking about that, I just was going to go and run and do my thing and try and keep up. Well, it didn't take but a second for me to fall behind. And I did fall behind, but my team was not worried about me. They knew that I wasn't going to be stupid. I joked about climbing down in the Grand Canyon because my son did, which he told me, don't ever do that, Mama. I about died. Whoops. Sorry about that. Got notification of some kind. Oh, it's my pool. Because it's pool night. Yay. But anyways, so I'm walking along far behind, not being stupid, and hunting for shade. So I would go down little spur trails to get the shade and sit down and rest in the shade for a minute because my alarm was like going off nonstop. And I'd get up and I'd walk a few feet and it'd go off again, you know? So it was, I needed not to be in the direct sunlight, and the path that we were on just, it just was like oven coming up at you. You know, you take that heat coming off of it and add that to the sunshine, and it was just ridiculous for me. So I kept falling further and further behind, and as I fell further and further behind and got more and more tired, I started feeling left out. I started feeling like I had been abandoned again, even though these were people that I know really well and that I very much trust, and I love them all to death. I mean, you know, the whole thing about going to Vegas with 7 guys. Okay, I had 7 bodyguards, plus there was some women that were there. You know, people brought their wives and girlfriends. And my teammates, the majority of them are either married or in a serious relationship. You know, and I don't even think that way. So, you know, I shared a room, but that was never on the table. You know what I mean? So, but I did. I started feeling very, very left out. The more tired I got, the more upset I got. Why? Because I wasn't thinking straight. I was allowing negative thoughts to come into my head. And, you know, you shouldn't ever allow negative thoughts to come into your head. And I really enjoyed the Grand Canyon. And as a matter of fact, one thing that happened while I was there, and not with my team because I had fallen behind so quickly, was that I got to pet a squirrel. Yes, one of the very biggest highlights of my trip was that I pet a squirrel. I reached out and I pet him. First, I put my hand out because he was standing there all cute, and he came over and he stood up like he was begging, and he sniffed at my hand, and I said, "Are you going to let me pet you, baby?" And he stood there, and I actually pet the squirrel. And this was amazing to me because squirrels come up all the time near me, but none of them have been coming up to let me pet them, you know. So this was really amazing. And these squirrels were a different type of squirrel than what I have here. And they had spots on them and everything. So they were really cute. So I got to pet the squirrel. I even took his picture. Of course I took his picture. I'm an ex-photographer. And I shouldn't say ex-photographer because that is a goal of mine that I have set for my arms. You know, I need stronger arms and better coordination so that I can do my photography like I used to. And I'm just not there yet. But I'm still a photographer. So I took the little squirrel's picture. And it's just adorable. And he's a little guy that I'm never going to forget, you know, because I got to pet him. But I still kept feeling really, really bad because I was allowing negativity to jump into my head. Oh my gosh. We should never, ever allow negativity to jump in our head. That is a no-no because it's just an awful feeling, right? It's a better feeling to be happy. So my petting the squirrel didn't last very long. It didn't keep me happy. And that's my fault. Nobody else's. That's my fault. And by the time my team was coming back and they had made it to this big lookout place and they were, you know, heading back to the vehicle and it was time to go and I didn't make it. And then I got more upset and everybody else was gone except for me and Charles. And Charles stayed with me. He saw that, you know, I kept having these issues and he understood that I was having these issues. He could see that I was getting really upset. And I told him that I felt so left out and that I didn't get to do all this different stuff that I wanted to do in Vegas. And here I am, you know, at the Grand Canyon crying. Nobody wants to do that. But this kind of stuff happens. I mean, this was not a good thing. This was a bad thing. So we finally, he helped me as far as, sitting down and talking to me. And Charles is a lot older than I am. Well, I shouldn't say a lot, but he is kind of, depending on your outlook of a lot. And, you know, the older you get, the more knowledgeable you become with life lessons. And that's just how it is. That's why people should get some wisdom from the older folks, the older generations, no more, because they've lived longer. So we get back finally, and I wanted to get some postcards, and I got to pick up the postcards that I wanted, and I refilled my water bottle. Why? Because water is what I need, and I know that. I'm overheated, and I keep I'd go 5 feet, and my monitor goes off again. I'd sit down, go another 10 feet, and my monitor goes off, and I sit down. And so by the time we left the Grand Canyon, I was so overly tired. And my emotions were overly out of control. So I'm laying on a bench, not a bench, but a seat, and kind of laying there, and I've got my head facing the back of the seat and just kind of hiding from the world. And Justin looks back there and he says, "Patty, are you asleep?" And I said, No, I'm not. And he's like, "Well, where's all that, fun banner kind of thing and funny?" And so I thought y'all'd appreciate me not speaking and shutting up for a while. Why? Because my emotions were out of control, y'all. They were. And I saw him give me this funny look. I saw that look like, what? And and then a little while later, I asked for a pit stop, and Charles, being really good, stopped at the next nice place. He wasn't going to stop at some little side of the road, nothing. He stopped at a nice place, and everybody got out and went in, and I was standing there, and I told him, I said, "Y'all got trash, I'll go ahead and throw it away." And then I couldn't get up the little bitty step from the pavement to the sidewalk. And that's not even a step, it's barely up. And I about fell. I couldn't get my foot up there. And I started to fall backwards. And when I'm trained very well, so I know what to do. And so it's like I'm running backwards, right? And one of the guys started laughing because all he saw was the running backwards part. Now, I didn't know that. So then I'm more upset because he's laughing at me and he's joking about it on top of it. Why don't you get a running start to get up it, instead of running backwards? And, but he didn't see the fact that I was about to fall. I just did not know that. So I get more upset and more upset. And I'm still exhausted. And, you don't catch up when you're not sleeping. You don't get more spoons because you stayed awake and you were laying down. You get more spoons when you sleep. So when we got back to the hotel, I went straight up and straight to sleep. I was exhausted, right? I slept all night, and I got up the next morning, and my emotions were still messed up. I still felt left out. Now, everybody else was resting up because we had a flight that we had to leave for at 2 a.m. And I can't do that. If I lay down and take a nap, it's going to screw me up. So I stayed up till 2 a.m. That didn't help matters. Even though I slept in till like 11, that did not help matters that I made myself stay up. Now, most of the day I spent down on the first floor gambling because it was fun, and I'd be sitting there doing my woo woo happy dance and attracting attention like I do everywhere I go, I guess. I'm not an attention hog, but I do attract attention somehow. Things blurt out of my mouth. I do stuff, and I'm just crazy. So, in a fun way, crazy, not a bad way. But I about cried myself to death on the way home. I was that upset. And so when we got back to Charles' house where everybody left their vehicles, and Chad came up to say goodbye. He's my captain. He saw that I was crying. He's like, "What's the matter, Patty?" And I told him, I said, "Charles knows. Charles knows." And my car, because it had been sitting in the sun, was baking hot, so I couldn't even get in it. I mean, it was ridiculously hot. So I had to turn it on and leave it running so it could cool down. And me and Charles talked for a good while, and I just blurted everything out about how I was feeling. And then the next day, after I had gotten a lot of rest and I'd had time to reflect on what had happened the days before and how it led to all this negativity and me feeling so left out and like I didn't get to do nothing and nobody wanted to be with me, and you know it was the whole nobody loves me kind of thing, only a little different. But I mean, it was that sort of thing of the I'm all alone. I got left out, and but I had time to reflect on it. And no, I didn't get left out. I just got worn out, And that reflection time is really, really super, super important to your cognitive health and to your mental health. That reflection time to realize, hey, they didn't do anything wrong. It's not their fault that I have MS and the heat got to me and I couldn't keep up. It's not their fault they enjoyed themselves. I want them to enjoy themselves. I want people to have fun. So if you're on vacation and this happens to you, tell everybody it's okay. It's fine, that y'all want to go run around and I'm going to stay here at the hotel and enjoy this or that at the pool, and do something. I don't want you to just lay there and be sad if you cannot participate in the day's events and keep up, which is what happened to me. And I don't want you to get so tired and so upset and then start believing those negative thoughts. So I called Charles the next day and I said, Charles, I got really over carried away. I said, it's my own fault if I didn't do something because I didn't call somebody and say, hey, you want to go blah, 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 and it was my own fault that I got so upset. And I am so sorry because, that was just me being overly exhausted and overreacting. So be careful about overreacting and allowing those negative thoughts to take over like I did for 2 days. We went to the Grand Canyon, then we had the day of rest, right? But I didn't really rest. So during those 2 days, actually it was a day and a half, but I was really, really upset. And that was my fault, y'all. They didn't do anything wrong. I let the negativity come in when I got too exhausted. And then I felt left out. But I wasn't. I'm a part of this team. They invited me. They didn't have to. They wanted to. They wanted me to go. So, I recommend highly, if you get upset about things, if you're feeling this way, reflect on it a few days later when you're not so tired or when you're not in pain and see if maybe you overreacted, because it happens. Now my time is, oh my gosh, way up because I don't pay attention to the time. I'm not looking at it, but it is. So, but I want to plug in one more thing. At Can Do MS, just search Can Do MS and you'll find their website. They're doing a seminar on moods, a webinar actually on mood, and they're going to have some experts there talking about moods. So you might want to sign up with them and see what the experts have to say about this. But reflecting on those events that happened and how you got into this negativity and how it did you, that is very important. So till next week, I want to say what I always say: smile big, smile often, laugh a lot, and most importantly, love yourself, including your wacky, messed up parts. Bye, y'all.